everybody. There's Miss Tracy. Welcome to my Craft Round the Clock segment. This is Yvette from Old Times Paint Parties. Great to have you here. I have tagged the Craft Round the Clock group link to the top of this post. And if you would like to go over there and join that group and watch other crafters do their thing, you can do that. And also, if you are new here, let me know. If you're new to my page, let me know. And give yourself a shout out in the comments. All right. And don't hesitate to give us a follow as well if you are new here. All right. So I thought we would paint this little barn star. And yes, I did start it so that we wouldn't just be base coating tonight. So sometimes it takes up a lot of time. So I just decided to get started a little bit on it. I will have the template for this. It will go into the Craft Round the Clock little vault I have on my website. It's all discounted. Any of the designs that I'm due on Craft Round the Clock, I've discounted like hugely. I think I put them in there for like $2.50 a piece or something like that. So if you want to grab this after, I'll make sure I post the link. But anyways, we'll just get started. I will show you sort of where we're headed. I had started a bigger one. And this is where we're headed to get that barn star to look like an actual barn star with all of the dimension in it. So you can see this is kind of looking a little flat. It just looks like a plain old flat star. But we're going to transform it so that it actually looks like a barn star. So I haven't finished this one either, but I did get the bigger one started. So we're going to work on this smaller version. So like I said, I base coated out all of my goodies. How's everybody doing? Hello, Cynthia. Miss Karina. Newbie Yvonne from Florida. Welcome. All right. Let us get going on this. Okay, so I'm going to grab a little bit of burnt umber and start getting the dimension in on my star here. And it's amazing just by shading how it just changed. You can see how it just changed from that to the one I showed you. So let's get going here. So, all right. So the little areas that are kind of down in the star, we're going to use burnt umber on. And that would be right in here. Less talk and more painting. Just say it. You're thinking it and I'll say it. All right. So I have a bit of glare on here, so don't mind me if I'm trying to see what I'm doing. So you want to get right in there on that edge. So all of those shorter edges that are kind of like down in, that kind of go down in on the star. I don't know if you know, I think you know what I mean. The lower edges. We're going to put this burnt umber on. Remove those brushes. I'm just going to go in on all of these, and we're going to do like a back-to-back float on these as well, which means we're going to shade on both sides just to give it that extra depth. Hello, Pam. And then we have one more down here. So we have our kind of 5 spots that just come right up into the center. Now hopefully it's straight enough because these lights give a crazy glare on my surface when I wet my paintbrush and it gets wet on my, I don't know, that one might be crooked. That one might be crooked, girls. Anyways, just know that I'm trying my best to make them straight. We'll give it a dry here and see how we did. Get all this water off the surface and I might be able to see a little bit. So I'm just going on the opposite side of those little lines and just doing a back-to-back float. And I mean, we could always come back in and put another layer on here too. This is just kind of the initial layer. If we wanted to add more darkness in here, we can do that too. We're not limited to one pass. So that kind of gives us all of those kind of deeper areas. And now we're going to work on these upper areas that make it look like that's where the fold is in the stars, the star ends. Oh, that's kind of a hard thing to describe, but hopefully it comes to life before your eyes and you'll know what I mean. It's like, ladies, you don't explain things very well. I'm just going to put a little bit just under these. I gave it some little gold tips just to make it a little bit different than just the plain old star. Kind of fancy it up a little bit. So I just put a little bit of burnt umber there as well. So let's get our, we're going to use a little bit of burnt orange, my friends. You know, there it is. It's like, I know I had it. I just used it. Hello, Miss Shirley. Hi, Janet. Thanks for joining, everybody. I think I'm the last person tonight on Craft Around the Clock. Pretty sure. I don't think there's any late night people coming after me. Missed one. I think I'm it. Alrighty. So by rights, I probably should mark these as to where they are. I'm just going to eyeball them and hope I get the center. You know, that's just how we roll. Let's do it. Let's throw caution to the wind and save a little time and hope I get the center. So we're going to do a back-to-back float on this one as well, on either side of it. We're going to bring that right into the center too. Like so. So you can already see it sort of looks like there's a fold there, just with that one pass, which is amazing. That's what we want. Just, hello, Jennifer. First timer. Welcome. So we're just going to carry on all the way around this little star. And hopefully watch it transform into what we want it to. And again, this is kind of just the first pass. Normally I go over my floats a couple times just to brighten them up. Usually the second pass, it brightens up a little bit better than the first. I just want to lay the groundwork here first. Bringing that in the middle. I think that one's crooked. It is a little bit. We'll straighten it up on this side. We fix. Never get too worked up about, you know, if you make a mistake. It's just paint and it's fixable. Never get too worried about it. You can just paint over it if it's not good and you just start over, which is kind of nice that it's so forgiving in that way. And trust me, ladies, there has been times when I've had to paint over things. I'm not unlike anyone else. that paints. Look at that. It's just starting to look like a barn star. It's amazing. Amazing transformation. It's not looking so flat now. All right. So there's kind of like, now we kind of have to go on the back side of that as well, just to give it that really nice peak at the top. And then we'll give all of this a dry and see where we're at. Is everyone still liking barn stars, or are they going by the wayside? Like, I still like them. I still have several barn stars hanging all over the place, inside and out. But I know some people are kind of getting away from the country look, which, I don't know, I'm still a fan. I'm still a fan of it. I still like it a lot. What about you guys? Hello, Kathy. I think sometimes when people say, oh, I haven't seen you live lately. Well, sometimes FB doesn't show you all the things, and it doesn't come up in your feed. If you don't like stay engaged with the page, it won't show you things on your feed. So you kind of have to check in every once in a while, just so that you remind Facebook, hey, I want to see that stuff. You know, it's kind of that way. So it's not that I haven't been live. I think it's just probably you're not seeing it come up on your feed, unfortunately. You still love them, Pam? Yeah, I still do too. Like anything sort of farmhousey, and I mean, you could actually do this star, you know, in a lighter color too. If you're more into like the farmhouse colors, you don't have to go with the rusty star. You could go with, you know, a lighter, like the color of my bow instead. Do your star in a lighter color. It would all still look really good. I love it too, Kathy. All right. Let's dry this thing. But you see how that just transformed that into a pretty snazzy looking three-dimensional star. I'm loving it. All right, so let us get this dry, and then we're going to put a little more shading on our outer edges of the star. All right, that's good. So we're going to go back into that burnt umber. And here on the outer edges, because they're kind of down as well, so you want to shadow those out. I don't know, I'm kind of giving you a little lesson in shadows and highlights tonight. And with something like this, it kind of demands it, that you know where to put the shadows and the highlights. So we're just giving you a little crash course, even if you didn't even ask for it. You're getting it. All right, so we're just going along those bottom edge here, and there's a little bit in here. We're going to go around that bow too in a second. All right, put some along this bottom edge, but that'll just help bring that dimension out a little bit more by pulling those outer edges to the back with this dark color. Okay, I'm going to go around the bow too, just to give that a little bit of depth. And then down here at the ends again, we're going to just go on this edge again over that little edge of that burnt orange, just to bring that to the back again. And then on our yellow tips, I want to take a bit of that burnt umber, and we're just going to go, not there, we're going to go along this bottom edge here, with a little bit of that. And we'll go here. Now, I know I'm getting some of my shading on my background. You can see some of that. We can fix that later too. I never get too worked up about that. I usually just go back in and touch up all the spots that I need to. And then this bottom edge here. All right, let's give all that a dry. And then I'm going to highlight my gold tip ends. Like I said, I just thought it would be kind of neat to put some sort of little gold ends on the star just to make it a little fancier and a little different. Hello, Linda. Base color of the star is burnt sienna. Yes, Loretta, it's acrylics. Hi, Cheryl. Alrighty. So now we're going to use a little bit of baby duck. So it's just a little brighter yellow for a little highlight on those gold ends. So we'll grab a bit of that, put a little bit of that on the ends here, just on that top edge a bit. Just as a little highlight. You could even, after you get this on, we could even bring in a little bit of white, just as a little glow mark. We'll get this area on here first. Oh, it's looking pretty good. And then we'll do this top one. Kind of getting some of that yellow on my star. Gotta get rid of that. And we'll put some on a little bit of the top side of these ones, or the right side, and that one's the left side. But anyway, it's on the opposite side of our burnt umber. We're going to put it on all these different tips. So that gave that a little extra oomph. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay. And again, like I said, you could always grab some white, put a little bit of white on that end too, just as a, let's get some white out. We'll show you. Then we'll move on to, maybe we'll move on to some greens. See how we can get going with those. Yeah, just a little extra little bit of white. Just kind of tap that right on that top edge of those, just as a little glare. Acrylics are all about the layers. Alrighty. All right. It's looking pretty good. That star turned out nice. Okay. Well, my greens. So I did my greens with some Thicket. I love this color. One of my favorite colors in the Decor line. So we're going to take a little bit of that. So I have mine sort of, and I say sort of because it's very loosely done in here. I didn't transfer them all out because it just takes forever. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. Just for me, because I'm the one that designed it, I know where I'm going, so I'm just going to freehand it. But it is all on the line drawing if you decide to grab one. So we're just going to line these out first, and then we'll add, and I kind of did, I have some orange berries on here too, so I kind of put a little round circle on the ones that I knew were the berry sprigs, and kind of like a teardrop on, that's kind of was my reasoning when I did it. So just so that I wouldn't have to draw all the leaves, because I knew I could freehand them. I was trying to save a little bit of time. So hopefully it all turns out you know, in the end, because I got a little lazy. You'll soon find out. All right, so these two on the top sides are the same on both sides. This center part is the same, and then of course down there all kind of mirror each other. All right, so I'm going to do those green ones first, or these thicket colored ones first, and then we'll do our berries after. So I'm just going to take my liner brush and I'm just going to pull some of these little leaves in along my stems. And I know on my original they're larger, like on that big one that I did, but this is a smaller version, so this size will suit it just fine. So we're just freehand pulling those in there like so. And then we'll do the same on that one. So I'm just pushing my brush down. Oops, that one kind of got a little awry there. Just pushing down and then pulling up as I get to the stem. I don't really think about it too hard. I just kind of do it. Just push down, and then as you get close to the stem, you kind of take some of that pressure off the brush. All right. Very pretty color, though. It kind of goes really nicely with that rusty star. Now I am going to, if I have time, maybe add a little more rusty spots to my star. I mean, you could always leave it just like that. It kind of looks pretty fancy and pretty nice just like that. But we could try and add some of those rusty sort of dimples like you get in a barn star. We can try to add some of that effect if we get that far. We'll see. Very nice. Okay. Love that color. All right, and for the berry ones, I used just some Hauser medium green. Wherever I put that. Where are those? There you are. I know they're all here because I was just using them earlier. Just have to find them in this mess I call a paint table. All right, so just some, we're going to try and go in here without smudging these very wet leaves that we have in here. So we're just going to line this center one out. And then our berries are on kind of like a little stick like that. So we're just going to put some straight lines down the row. And we'll come back in and put some berries on the end of those. So same with this one, we're going to come in here and line that and put our little sticks. I call them sticks. They're just straight little lines like so. Get them to touch the stem perhaps. Like that. And then we're just going to use some burnt orange and color those little berries in. So we have one on the very end. So I'm just using my liner. I mean, you could come in and use brush end and just dot these if you wanted to. It would just be just as easy. We're just going to plant these right in here. Just check and see if there was any questions about what I'm doing. Now, I'm looking at that little branch there, and I'm finding it's too green. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber to my green. my Hauser medium green on these berry sticks and tone it down, because it just, as I'm looking at it, it just seems too bright. So I'm going to fix that in a second when I get all these little berries on here. So like I said, it's just looking too bright for me. So I'm going to take some of my Hauser medium and I'm going to mix it with some brown of that burnt umber. Make a little muddy color there. And I'm just going to go over my stick a little bit, and it's going to tone that down just a smidge. It's a little bit better. It's almost too bright for this sort of rustic look we have going on here. All right, it's looking pretty good. So we can just move on down over here. We'll do a few more of these little sprigs. So this one is the thicket color. That is a berry beside it. And then we have a little bit bigger ones that I did trace these ones on because they were a little bit larger. So I thought, oh, I better paint those on instead of just doing the quick version. Look at me getting my hand in paint right there. We'll turn this way. It's inevitable. I swear to you all, I cannot be trusted around wet paint. So this is kind of, open to interpretation in the way that you could do your greenery in any color you wanted to. I just chose this kind of bluish green color because I like it. But if you wanted a more traditional green, it would still look lovely too. I mean, it doesn't have to be this color. But if you do decide to get the template, I will add the colors that I used on there if you want to follow what I did. They will be included with the line drawing and photo that comes in the little package. But like I said, you could do the greens any color you want. Like I said, you can change out the color of your star, all of that. So you can see these ones are a little bit larger, these two sprigs. And then I debated on whether I was going to shade these as well. On this smaller one, I might not, because it's a little bit more difficult to get in these smaller areas to shade each of those tiny little leaves. It's not that it's impossible. You can, but I think it's fine on this smaller version, but on the larger one, I definitely will, because the leaves are much larger. And I would probably use, I think I've used mermaid tail before for some shading on these little blue-green leaves. I'll add that to the list as well, what I use. All right, so we have a smaller little sprig in here. Try and keep my hands out of that wet paint over there. So far, so good. So I also have to do my little orange berries over on this side as well. Thank you, Cindy. All right, we'll just keep on keeping on here. So I'm going to mix that burnt umber with that green again for my berry sticks. And we have 2 on this side. We'll get these in before we do that little flower. So we'll add our little sticks. And however many of those you put on, you have to put a little berry on the end. So bear that in mind when you're painting sticks. The little stick ends, depending on how many berries you want on your little sprig there. So how many you're going to have. All right, and then we'll use our burnt orange. Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, Jennifer. The line drawing will be on my web page. After we're done here, I will load it, and I'll add the link to this live post at the top when I get it loaded for you, and I'll let you know when it's in there. So on the other one, I did a yellow flower. I'm not sure. I think I might try just a white. Let's just try maybe a white daisy on this one. I don't know. Why not? See what that looks like. We can always change it if it's not good. All right. So I'm going to add a center to my flower. And I'm showing you this one side because, you know, this side will be exactly the same. So hopefully we can get this last little bit of greenery done down here too, so you can see what I've done there. All right, so let's give all of this a little dry here first. Hello, Renee. You're welcome, Jennifer. All right. I just want to dry it a little bit just so that I don't stick my hands in it again. Not to say that I still won't smudge it. I'll try my best. I never promise, because 9 times out of 10 it's still going to happen. But we'll try and avoid it. All right, so we're going to get some white out. I'm going to grab a number 6 round here. Get my little bigger one. And I'm just going to try and pull these petals in kind of maybe 2 strokes. I don't know if I can get it done in 1. But we're just going to do the same thing and kind of push down and pull up like that. See, I'm not sure if I'm liking the white. The yellow kind of popped a little bit better, didn't it? Yeah, I think we're going to go back to the yellow. Let's ditch that plan. And we'll use a little bit of this baby duck. It kind of pops out there a little bit better. So we can just go over that. A little bit of yellow. Anyway, I talked myself right out of it. So I'm just kind of putting this on pretty thick in the way that I don't plan on going back over it again, over these petals. And one pass should be plenty. All right, so I'm going to go back into my center color and we'll just bring that back out to the front. Give that a little dry. That looks pretty good. And I think I'll take a little bit of that burnt orange on my angled brush. And I'm just going to go around my center bit here. See, I'm pushing it because I don't know if it's completely dry, but we're doing it anyway. Time is of the essence here. So we'll go around that just so that we have that little shadow sort of, or that little bit of color around the center. And then I'm going to go into my burnt umber and shade along that bottom of the center, just sort of in a C shape, just to enhance that center a little bit. Like so that pops out. I think I'm going to add a little bit of a white highlight to my petals as well. They're kind of lost in there. I'm going to grow tangerine right here. So I'm going to use a lighter orange to highlight the top of my center. Whoops. Just add a little bit of that in there. You can even add some white after too, a little glare line in there too. But so we're going to go into the white. We can just, add a little bit of, just a tiny smidge there. I don't want to overdo it. And then I'm going to come in on my petals. I lied to you and said, I'm not going to do anything else, but I think I am. I think we'll add a little bit of white highlight to those just so that we can see them a bit better. And I mean, we can even go as far as to, you can add a little bit of a shadow between the petals if you want as well. Just like that, so you can see them a bit better. And that's just with some burnt umber, but I don't want it to be overpowering. I just want a little bit in there so we can kind of define those. That's a little better. Where shall we put this one? Right here. All right, there's our little flower in there. So I think at this point now I'm going to use my little stencil brush here, and I'm going to grab some of that burnt orange, and I'm just going to see what it looks like to just kind of stipple a bit of that onto my star, just to give it that little bit of a textured look. Yeah, I think I like that. So I'm just stippling a bit of that brighter color on there. I don't want to add a whole lot. I don't want it to get all crazy in there, but just to give it a little texture on there. Kind of is a nice effect. And I think once I do this, I'll get this one up here done. I think I'll take some of that tangerine, that lighter orange, and just mix it in there. See how that looks. Experimentally, of course. Kind of liking the textured look. All right, and then I'm going to grab some of that lighter orange. I'm just offloading that, and I'm just going to add a smidge. I don't want a whole lot of that, because it will undo all of what we did with the burnt orange. But I think if we add a little, see how that, oh, I love that. I'm loving how the texture just changed the whole look of that. Do you agree? I like it. Hi, Miss Kelly. So yeah, just very light touch, but it just added that little extra to it. So let's just carry on and just do the rest. So we're going to go back into our burnt orange. Very light bit in here. We got a couple more minutes. Even if I don't complete the whole thing, I will put a photo up and the link as to where to get the line drawing when I'm finished here. So you will see the finished product, but just in a photo. All right, so we're going to get some of the tangerine color, offload that a bit, and we'll just kind of, ooh, that one got a little bright. Just do a little random of the lighter color. And I like the way that looks. Very nice. Okay, that made it look a little more rusty brown, rusty star. All right, so I think that will be, I think we have to wrap up because we have about a minute left, but the bow, I have it that on the line drawing that it is striped, and I think I am going to work on those little checks and everything. I don't have time to do it right now, but I will be using some of those oranges in here for the checkered bow. So you'll see that in the photo when I'm finished. Hopefully that turns out all good. But anyways, thank you for joining my Craft Around the Clock segment. I will attach the link for the line drawing, the template here on this post when I get it ready, and I'll do it in a separate post as well. All right, thanks everybody for joining me on my Craft Around the Clock segment, and make sure you go head over to the Craft Around the Clock and join there, and give our page a follow too if you so choose. All right, we'll see you all next week.